It's Dan Finn from the marketing team here at Veneziano Coffee Roasters in Melbourne. We're happy to introduce you to Matt Graylee from Raw Material, and also on our Zoom call today is Jack Allisey, who's our green coffee buyer here at Veneziano Coffee Roasters. And this session, very informal, very relaxed. We just really want to talk about this really exciting coffee origin, Timor-Leste, just to the north of Australia, and what it offers in terms of obviously its coffee potential, but perhaps a little bit of the history of the country and a little bit of its geography and topography as well. So I'm going to hand across to Matt and Jack, and I hope you all find this very interesting.
I think Matt, before we dive too deep into Timor-Leste itself, we've done a little bit of work with you guys at Raw Material previously as well, and I guess as one of the co-founders of Raw, could you maybe just share with us a little bit about the ethos of the company and what you're aiming to do?
Yeah, so we are a social enterprise, and we're registered as a community interest company in the UK. And so that means we operate a lot like a for-profit business rather than an NGO. So there's no, laggard, slow-moving, lots of boxes to tick. Instead, we're very sprightly. We can move on the dime. But also being funded through business activities, it means that we try to find solutions that are actually financially viable. So they have to be coffees that have a marketplace, and they have to be from producers that where it is actually sustainable to be done. And so that means the activities that we carry out have this ability to be replicated by others, and that's what we ultimately hope will happen. So 100% of the profits that we produce go to the producers of coffee, either through direct payments for the coffee or through investments into maybe local infrastructure that's required, or training programs, or anything else that might help find those who are most marginalized, those who are trapped in cycles of disadvantage, who are generally smallholder farmers who rely on coffee for their income, raise the quality up and the yields, and then connect them through to roasters like yourselves. That's what we exist to do, and that's how we do it in a nutshell.
Brilliant. And Timor-Leste is your most recent or current project, I guess you would look at it. You've had sort of works that you've done previously. I think our first interaction was through the work in Rwanda. You've got your pilot farm, you would call it, in Colombia.
Yep.
What sort of learnings have you taken from these previous projects and taken into Timor-Leste?
Yeah, great question. So we started in Colombia back in 2012, and Colombia is actually quite a developed coffee nation. You get yields there per hectare about 5 or 6 times that you'll find in Timor-Leste, right? Plus the varieties are very resilient and modern. They've got a really robust governing body that invests into making sure that everyone knows how to grow their coffee very, very well. So starting in Colombia gave us this opportunity to create a pilot farm, as you mentioned, and then from there try a community wet mill structure with stable pricing based on the cost to produce coffee rather than the always changing New York C commodity price of coffee. The specialty market, as it just continues to grow, offers us this opportunity, not just us, but I mean humanity, an opportunity to make good on the promise of development through trade with this product that at one end we can't get enough of. Humans aren't going to stop drinking it, and they're willing to pay more and more for it. And at the other end, the producers generally aren't seeing that profit that's available. So we're trying to connect those two together. So one of the ways that we tried to sort this out was through this community wet mill structure in Colombia. And since that, we've opened up many, many more associations around the country, and that's still by far and away the country that we sell the most coffee from. But to have more impact, we wanted to focus on places that were that were highly neglected, so where people weren't really operating, where the floor is lower, basically, where you spend $1 and it's the equivalent of having spent $100 somewhere else. So that's how Burundi, Rwanda, Timor-Leste, and more recently Mexico have come onto the cards. So Timor-Leste, we arrived and discovered that this was a very unusual circumstance. There had been 25 years of war with Indonesia, leading up until the year 2000, which left most of the country devastated. There was no infrastructure, the roads. I mean, you can't survive 25 years of continuous war and come out the other side with great electricity supply or schooling or a government budget. We've taken from Colombia and what we've learned in Burundi and Rwanda, various technical details about how coffee can be processed and picked and harvested and pruned, and basically using that information, we're able to start to develop this coffee sector as it starts to replace oil as the main earner for the country.
Previously, all of the coffee production's gone into commercial coffees, right? There's a lot of probably inherent issues within the supply chain in Timor-Leste. How do you then arrive in a country full of great ideas, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and then begin to have an influence?
We arrived into Timor-Leste in a different way to other countries. So we arrived through Asian Development Bank work. So it was with a friend of mine, Andrew Hetzel from Coffee Strategies. He had this contract to investigate the supply chain and to help create a national board. There was no national governing body. And so he invited me along to help with one of these particular events. And first you look around and you go, okay, we're going to need to do a lot of recon. There's so much to know, so little time. But this time there was David Friedman from Asian Development Bank, who already kind of knew everything. He had been there, living there on the ground for, I think, 5 years at that time. And through that period had tried many things, seen a lot of things work, seen a lot of things that don't work, and super logical, but very creative character. And so just by staying in his house and chatting all the time, all these plans came up, because he would have all these ideas. And the question is, well, why hasn't it been done? And there's always something, but there's always a way around that something, right? And what we like to do is try and stay quite autonomous and find the right characters and then give them a lot of space to do their thing. So for us, the first key was, okay, yields need to go up, but before we can focus on that, there needs to be money in return. So if people are going to be pruning, if people are going to be planting new trees, they have to know there'll be some sort of outcome. There hasn't been that predictability in the past. Okay, so you work backwards from there. How do we get predictability? You find roasters in advance. Okay, and how can you convince them to lock themselves into contracts? Well, you're going to have to prove quality. How are you going to prove quality? So you sort of work your way back, and eventually you've got this whole systems idea. So we build this whole system, and we say, let's attack, and this is the weird part, let's try and hit all the points at once. So we tried to create a wet mill to prove quality through the competition, to get the roasters to give the money to effectively pay for that wet mill, right? While also creating this reality TV game show that would help everyone in the country see what's possible and sort of speak about coffee as if everyone were already doing all these best practices. And that's how you sort of get the flywheel turning.
Because you're essentially trying to build trust at both ends of the supply chain, right? You've got roasters that are dealing with a completely unknown origin, but also you're asking people to change the way they've done things for decades.
Mm-hmm. And you can't push it uphill, you can't. The way I think about it is the water's going to roll down the mountain, always down. So all you can do is cut channels, right? But you can cut channels and redirect that water into a different sort of stream. And so what we do is, to work with the system, you do things like set up buying points and create two prices. So if people are going to drop off cherry and get 25 cents, look at the board and see someone else get 45 cents and go, wait, what? Why? And you go, oh, because it was all right. 100% right the next day. As easy as that. It's about incentives. But you have to do that knowing that by doing so, it will reach a quality that will allow it to be exported and still be viable.
That's actually a really good segue of cutting channels and diverting water. We start to sort of talk about the physical stuff you're doing over there and the building of the first wet mill. We want to touch a little bit on sort of how that came about and why that's so important, and sort of maybe a little bit about Ermera as well, being such a crucial point in the chain over there.
Yeah, so I met Ermera in early 2018. Ermera had just that year, the previous season, gone back to where he's originally from and produced a very small quantity of higher quality coffee. It had probably touched 80, 81, 82 points. And it was with a wooden hand cranked pulper into a bucket, fermented, washed and laid out on a tarp, and with attention to detail with regards to the ripeness initially, and then for selecting defects, he nailed it. But he had all the drive and has this ability to have people rally around him to get things done. So the whole community listens to him, even though he's in his mid-20s. He's respected like an elder. It's quite interesting. And so with Ermera, we started a company which is effectively raw material in Timor-Leste, but with a different name. And first thing we wanted to do was build this community wet mill. And the structure is one that goes down a hill using terracing. The reason for that is so that people can bring cherry in at the top, and then gravity will work its way through the system, no double handling. There are little channels made out of concrete blocks that will sort and disperse the dense coffee from the light coffee that will go across the top and come off. It's just a quick way to do a quick rough sort of beans that didn't quite develop to those that should be pretty good. Then we've got what are they called? It's sort of like a netting with a frame that's hanging from the roof. Yep. And so all the cherries will go through that, and the small ones fall through. Again, a rough way of quickly sorting your underwraps from overwraps. Then through a pulper into the fermentation tanks. We like to put sort of this material that gas can come through one way but not the other way on top, and then put water on top, so like a water cushion, and open a valve at the bottom so all the juices will flow away as it sort of sucks down over the fermentation time. And then we do a wash and pop them out to dry. And there's not much more to getting high quality coffee than that. There's a bit of detail at every step, but you do need the space if you want to signal to the community that something new is happening. This provided us an opportunity to go here's where it happens, bring your coffee here and get a much higher price, get a job as well, stay for the whole season, and then when it's finished and it's exported, we can send some back. You can taste the difference. It's going to be fun. So that's why we do the wet mills.
You obviously work with a few different communities over there. We've purchased a couple of lots from Parame. Could you tell us a little bit more about the Parame community and those coffee lots as well?
Everywhere we work is in Ermera at the moment. How we chose to work there is we wanted to find the place where, when you graph the poverty rate against the amount of government spend per capita, there's going to be something that stands out. And they have the highest poverty rate and one of the lowest spends per capita. It's kind of insane. It's about $2.50 per person per year that is spent on government stuff. So that means schools, roads, power. Apparently $2.50 is going to cover all of that for the year. So that's the place where it makes the most sense to do work. And Parame is one of the largest producers of cherry in our region nearby outside. And so the altitude is very nice and high. It's coming in around, I think, 1,700, 1,800 meters. The only higher spot is further up the road, term used loosely, in Koileki. Take you about half a day from Parame to get to Koileki. That's where after this year's season, which is underway right now, so we started purchasing cherry 2 weeks ago. That's where we'll build the newest wet mill.
So traditionally, most of the coffee in Timor is what, naturally processed, sun-dried, or is it washed, or?
There's never been a good market for natural processed coffees, just dried in the skin. But we've found that the varieties really lend themselves to those coffees. So while the washed is great, the honey, I don't know, some people love it, but the naturals, everyone tends to enjoy. It's easy to make a clean natural because it doesn't tend to be too rainy once the season gets started. And you get a nice clean natural out of Timor-Leste from the high altitude coffees, and it might as well be an Ethiopian or something else.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things that impressed me at the lots that we got to cup was that the natural coffees were really solid. They were very, very solid, clean, vibrant coffees, and coffees that I think sit very well in the offering of any specialty coffee roaster for that juicy red fruit, bordering on boozy sort of coffee. Outside of purchasing sort of some of the delicious coffee that, I mean, we obviously have, and there's a few other people around the world that have as well. How can people learn more about the work that you guys are doing?
Regarding raw material in general, follow us on Instagram. Instagram's the good one. If you to purchase coffee through Veneziano or any other roaster who has coffees from Timor-Leste, will come with a bunch of information as well. So I think that's the best way.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us some of your time and sharing a wealth of information on Timor-Leste.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is me, Ameta, from Timor-Leste. So where I'm now is in Malawi. So today I'm going to show you what we are doing back in Timor-Leste, especially during the COVID.